Think about this. You've eaten instant noodles more times than you probably want to admit. Late nights, tight budgets, dorm rooms, or just a craving at 2 a.m. that only instant noodles can fix. Different brands, different flavors, different countries even. But pull open the packet and the noodles inside always look the exact same way. Why are instant noodles always curly? Not straight, like spaghetti. Not flat, like fresh ramen from a restaurant. Curled into tight, springy waves, packed into a brick you have to break apart with your hands. Every brand, every flavor, every country that sells them. You're probably thinking, easy. It's just how noodles look. Maybe it's tradition, or maybe it's just visual flair, a little personality stamped onto a cheap product. That's the obvious answer. It's also the one that falls apart the moment you actually think about it, because fresh noodles, the kind you get in an actual ramen shop, are almost never curly like this. Traditional ramen dough is even mixed with an alkaline mineral water called kansui, which gives it that springy bite and yellow tint, but the noodles themselves are usually cut straight or gently wavy. Nothing like the tight coiled springs packed into an instant brick. So if curliness were purely a style choice, restaurants aren't shy about presentation, they'd copy the look too. They don't. Which means something else is going on, something that has nothing to do with how the noodles look on a plate. And here's the part that makes it stranger. Curly noodles are objectively harder to line up neatly. A straight noodle stacks flat, cleanly into a tidy rectangular block with no wasted space. A curly noodle twists, overlaps itself, and takes up an oddly shaped footprint that looks, at first glance, like a packaging nightmare. So if curly is harder to arrange, why would an entire industry built around shaving off fractions of a cent per unit deliberately choose the harder shape? To answer that, we have to go back to the years right after World War II. In Japan, during a period of serious food shortages. At the time, noodles were made the traditional way, cut into strands, then eaten fresh or dried slowly in open air. That worked fine for a restaurant bowl, but it did nothing to solve the bigger problem the country was facing. People needed food that could be stored for a long time, cooked almost instantly, and shipped anywhere without spoiling. Fresh-style noodles couldn't do any of that. They spoiled within days, cooked unevenly in bulk, and packed inefficiently for mass shipping. Something about the entire process needed to change, not just the recipe, but the actual physical shape of the noodle strand itself. In 1953, a noodle maker in Japan was running a noodle cutting machine when it malfunctioned. Instead of producing clean, straight strands, the broken machine spat out crooked, wavy noodles instead. Most people would have scrapped that batch. Instead, he studied what the accident had actually done and realized the wavy shape solved problems straight noodles never could. He developed and eventually patented a curved noodle manufacturing method built specifically to cut noodles into that wavy shape on purpose. A few years later, in 1958, that same wavy shape became the foundation for something far bigger. The world's first true instant noodle, created by flash-frying pre-cooked noodles at roughly 150 degrees Celsius to strip out nearly all their moisture and extend their shelf life from days to months. The flash-frying process locked that wavy shape in permanently, turning a broken machine's accident into the default blueprint for an entire new category of food. Here's where things get genuinely interesting, and it has nothing to do with the wave shape at first. It has to do with a chemical process called gelatinization. When starch is heated in the presence of water, the individual starch granules absorb water, swell up, and break down their original crystalline structure. That's the exact process that happens whenever you cook any noodle, rice, or potato from raw. Instant noodles cheat that process by doing it in advance. During manufacturing, the noodles are steamed before frying, which fully gelatinizes the starch while it's still on the factory line. By the time you add hot water at home, the starch has already been cooked once. You're not really cooking the noodle from scratch, you're simply rehydrating something that was cooked days, weeks, or months earlier at the factory. That single fact is the actual scientific reason instant noodles can go from dry brick to dinner in 3 minutes. while a raw noodle from scratch needs 8 to 10 minutes of active boiling to reach the same texture. But gelatinization alone doesn't explain the full 3-minute number. That's where the curls come back in. Flash frying doesn't just remove water, it does it violently and fast. As the noodle hits hot oil, the water trapped inside flashes into steam and escapes explosively, leaving behind a noodle riddled with thousands of microscopic pores and channels, almost like a dense sponge instead of a solid strand. Now combine that porous internal structure with the curled shape on the outside. The waves create larger surface area and open channels between strands, so when boiling water is poured over the block, it can penetrate through those microscopic pores from multiple directions at once, instead of soaking in slowly from just the outer surface the way it would with a solid, straight, tightly packed strand. Gelatinization made it edible again quickly. The wavy shape and porous structure made sure hot water could actually reach every part of the noodle fast enough for that 3-minute number to be physically possible. Fried noodles, once cooled, become extremely brittle, almost glass-like in their internal structure. A straight, rigid strand under that kind of stress simply snaps under its own weight during shipping, and a box full of shattered noodle fragments isn't something anyone can sell. A curled noodle behaves more like a coiled spring than a straight rod. It can flex slightly and absorb impact during packing, stacking, and transport without shattering into pieces, the same physical principle that makes a coiled wire more durable under stress than a straight one. And here's a number worth sitting with. After flash frying, the final moisture content inside an instant noodle block typically drops below 1%. Almost every organism responsible for spoiling food, mold, bacteria, yeast, needs a certain amount of available water to grow. Drop moisture that low, and you create an environment those organisms genuinely cannot survive in, which is exactly why a package of instant noodles can sit unrefrigerated on a shelf for the better part of a year without spoiling, using nothing but heat and physics instead of artificial preservatives to get there. So what if that machine had never malfunctioned back in 1953? Manufacturers would likely still have been chasing 3 separate problems: cook time, breakage, and shelf life, probably with 3 different and more expensive fixes instead of one shape that happened to solve all 3 simultaneously. Instant noodles might have taken years longer to become the cheap, fast, shelf-stable food they are today, and they might never have gotten quite this affordable. A broken machine accidentally solved, in one motion, a problem food scientists hadn't cracked on purpose yet. Remember that packet you've torn open 100 times without ever really looking at the noodles inside? It was never just a style choice. It was never random. It was a manufacturing accident, refined into deliberate food science that quietly solved rehydration speed, durability, and shelf life all at the exact same time. So next time you crack open a block of instant noodles and those tight little waves are staring back at you, it's not decoration. It's a 70-year-old accident backed by actual starch chemistry that turned out to be smarter than anything anyone could have designed on purpose. You've eaten it 100 times. Now you know why.